It was a sweltering afternoon in the heart of Texas, the kind where the sun beats down relentlessly on the cracked asphalt of Route 66, turning the horizon into a shimmering mirage of heat waves and distant oil rigs. Aisha Patel gripped the steering wheel of her nondescript silver sedan, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail, eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses that shielded her from the glaring light. She was in her mid-40s, with the sharp features of her Indian heritage high cheekbones, warm brown skin, and a gaze that could pierce through deception like a laser. As the chief of the NSA's Homeland Security Division, Aisha had spent the last decade unraveling cyber threats, coordinating with international agencies to thwart terrorist plots, and navigating the labyrinthine politics of Washington, D.C. Her family had immigrated from Mumbai when she was just a child. Economic hardship for the promise of America, only to face the subtle and not-so-subtle barriers of prejudice in their new home. Her father, a software engineer who worked double shifts to put her through college, had instilled in her a relentless work ethic, while her mother, a teacher, taught her the value of quiet resilience. Aisha had climbed the ranks through sheer determination, earning degrees in computer science and cryptography, then joining the NSA, where she cracked codes that saved lives and exposed networks of espionage stretching from Tehran to Moscow. But today, after wrapping up a grueling operation monitoring border surveillance drones, she was simply a woman on a long drive back to her base in Austin, craving nothing more than a tank of gas and a bottle of iced tea to cut through the dry dust coating her throat. The road stretched endlessly, flanked by scrubby mesquite bushes and occasional billboards advertising truck stops or roadside motels, the wind whistling through the slightly open window, carrying the scent of sage and exhaust. She hadn't slept properly in days, her mind still buzzing with the details of the mission-encrypted signals intercepted from cartel communications, patterns of illegal crossings that hinted at larger smuggling rings. Aisha prided herself on her composure. In high-stakes briefings with generals and senators, she remained unflappable, her voice steady as she presented data that could shift national policy. Yet, beneath that exterior lay memories of her youth being called names in school for her accent, overlooked for promotions early in her career because she didn't fit the all-American mold, and a constant need to prove herself twice as hard as her peers. These experiences had forged her into a strategist, always thinking 3 steps ahead, anticipating threats before they materialized. As the fuel gauge dipped toward empty, she spotted a faded sign for a gas station ahead. A lonely outpost named Lone Star Fuel, with peeling paint on its awning and a single pump island under a rusty canopy. The place looked like a relic from the 1950s. Surrounded by flat, arid land where tumbleweeds rolled lazily across the gravel lot, and the only other vehicle was an old pickup truck parked crookedly near the entrance, its bed filled with rusted tools. Aisha pulled in smoothly, the tires crunching over loose stones, and killed the engine. Stepping out into the oppressive heat that wrapped around her like a blanket, she wore casual jeans, a lightweight blouse, and sensible flats-nothing. That screamed authority, just the attire of a traveler weary from the road. Stretching her arms, she popped the gas cap and inserted the nozzle. The familiar click and hum of fuel flowing providing a momentary sense of normalcy. In the distance, a semi-truck rumbled by on the highway, its horn echoing like a lonely wail, while cicadas buzzed in the sparse vegetation nearby. Inside the station's small convenience store, visible through grimy windows, a clerk lounged behind the counter, flipping through a magazine, oblivious to the world outside. Aisha's thoughts drifted to her daughter back home, a college freshman, studying engineering, inspired by her mother's path but shielded from the harsher realities Aisha had endured. She smiled faintly at the thought, pulling out her phone to check for messages. Nothing urgent. Just a routine update from her team about a resolved glitch in their surveillance software. But then, the crunch of gravel under heavy boots interrupted her reverie, and she glanced up to see a sheriff's cruiser rolling into the lot. Its lights off, but presence unmistakable. The vehicle was a white Ford with Brewster County Sheriff emblazoned on the side. Dust-caked from patrols on these back roads. Out stepped Deputy Mark Harlan, a burly man in his late 30s. With a crew cut, mirrored aviators, and a uniform stretched tight over his frame. He had the swagger of someone who wielded local power unchecked, his belt heavy with a holstered gun, radio, and handcuffs. Harlan scanned the area with a predatory gaze, his lips curling into a smirk as he fixed on Aisha. She didn't flinch. She'd encountered types like him before, men who saw her ethnicity as a red flag, her confidence as a challenge. In her line of work, she'd analyzed profiles of such individuals, spotting patterns in their behavior that often masked deeper insecurities or biases rooted in small-town isolation. Harlan sauntered over, thumbs hooked in his belt loops, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust. "Afternoon, ma'am," he drawled, his Texas accent thick and laced with suspicion. "You look a bit out of place here. Mind if I ask what brings you to these parts?" Aisha kept her hands visible, a habit from years of training in de-escalation protocols, and replied evenly, "Just passing through, Deputy. Filling up before heading to Austin." Her tone was polite but firm, betraying no hint of her authority. Harlan's eyes narrowed, roaming over her car, noting the out-of-state plates she'd rented for the trip. "Austin, huh? That's a ways. Let me see some ID." She reached slowly into her purse, extracting her driver's license, not her NSA credentials, which she kept concealed in a hidden compartment for security reasons. Handing it over, she asked calmly, "May I know the reason for this stop?" He snatched the card, reading it aloud with exaggerated slowness. "Aisha Patel. Sounds foreign. What are you doing out here? We get all sorts sneaking around these borders." The implication hung heavy in the air, its thinly veiled accusation tying into the region's tensions over immigration and border security. Aisha felt a familiar twinge in her chest, echoes of past encounters where her name alone prompted questions about her loyalty, her real origins. But she held his gaze, responding, "Like I said, just getting gas." "Is there a problem?" Harlan stepped closer, invading her space, his breath smelling faintly of chewing tobacco. "The problem is folks like you thinking they can waltz through without a care. Shiny car, no locals around, makes a man wonder." He tossed her ID back carelessly, forcing her to catch it mid-air. Tension coiled in the air like a spring, the heat amplifying every second. Aisha turned slightly to replace the nozzle, but Harlan's hand shot out, shoving her shoulder hard enough to make her stagger against the car. "Hey!" she exclaimed, steadying herself, her voice sharpening. "That's unnecessary." But he wasn't done. With a grunt, he rifled through her open passenger door, tossing aside a map and water bottle as if searching for contraband. "Oh, registration," he barked. Aisha pointed to the glove box, trying to defuse its in their top folder. He grabbed it roughly, crumpling the paper, then spun on her with fury in his eyes. Without warning, his boot lashed out, connecting solidly with her shinna. Sharp, deliberate kick that sent pain exploding up her leg. She crumpled to the gravel, gasping as the impact tore through her jeans, drawing blood. The nozzle clattered to the ground, fuel spilling in a small puddle. Harlan loomed over her, sneering. "That's for not knowing your place. Stay down, or it'll get worse." He turned, climbing back into his cruiser, revving the engine before peeling out in a spray of dust. Aisha pushed herself up slowly, ignoring the throbbing agony, her mind racing. Across the lot, a young mechanic, barely out of his teens, had witnessed it all from behind a stack of tires, his phone discreetly recording the assault. He approached hesitantly, eyes wide. "Ma'am, I got it on video." That was messed up. Aisha nodded, brushing dirt from her hands, her composure returning. Like armor, send it everywhere. News, social media. Make sure it's seen. As he nodded and began uploading, Aisha limped to her car, retrieving her secure phone. She dialed her deputy, Jamal Reyes, a trusted analyst who'd been with her through countless operations. Jamal, this is Patel. I've been assaulted by a local deputy in Brewster County. Asterisk names Mark Harlan. Pull his full profile, disciplinary records, complaints, associates. And geofence, any alerts. Jamal's voice crackled with concern. Chief, are you okay? We've got a hit on a civilian video already popping up. Aisha glanced at her swelling shin, the blood staining her sock, but her focus was laser sharp. Mime. Fine, this isn't random. I want to know why he targeted me. Hanging up, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, the pain grounding her amid the chaos. Memories flooded back of her first job post, 9/11s, when colleagues whispered about her connections abroad. Or at the time, a superior dismissed her intel because she was too emotional about immigrant rights. These slights had fueled her rise, turning adversity into fuel for excellence. Now, as the video began to spread first on local forums, then exploding onto TikTok and Twitter with captions decrying police brutality against minorities, Aisha felt a shift. By the time she drove off, her phone buzzing with alerts. The clip had garnered thousands of views, hashtags like #TexasInjustice trending. She pulled into a nearby diner, a quaint spot with checkered tablecloths and the aroma of fresh coffee, to ice her leg and plan. Sipping black tea, she reviewed the initial file Jamal sent. Harlan had 3 prior complaints for excessive force, all involving people of color near the border, dismissed by his superior, Sheriff Donna Whitaker. Patterns emerged, connections to anti-immigrant groups, and unreported incidents swept under the rug. Aisha's strategic mind word. This wasn't just a bad cop, but a symptom of deeper rot in a region rife with xenophobia, where border politics intertwined with local law enforcement. As evening fell, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple over the vast Texas plains. Aisha made her decision. She wouldn't flash her badge yet. She'd let the system reveal itself, gathering evidence like threads in a web. Calling Jamal again, she instructed, dig into Whitaker's finances, campaign donors, and monitor the video spread. I want to see who tries to suppress it. The mechanics footage was now viral, news outlets picking it up, with speculation about the mysterious woman who stood her ground. Aisha smiled faintly, the pain in her leg a reminder of the fight ahead. This kick had awakened something fierce within her, not rage, but a calculated resolve to dismantle the prejudices that allowed such acts to flourish. As she drove into the night, the stars emerging like pinpricks in the velvet sky, Aisha knew her journey was no longer just a drive home. It was the beginning of a reckoning that would expose the underbelly of power in Texas, one revelation at a time. The wind through the window carried whispers of change. And for the first time in hours, she felt empowered. Her immigrant roots strengthening her stance against the storm brewing on the horizon. Hours later, holed up in a modest motel off the highway, Aisha pored over digital dossiers on her encrypted laptop. The room's fluorescent light casting shadows on the worn carpet. Jamal's updates poured in. Harlan's record showed a history of unchecked aggression, from roughing up migrant workers to intimidating journalists covering border stories. One complaint stood out: a young Latino man pulled over for a broken taillight that wasn't broken, ending in bruises and a dropped case after threats from the department. Aisha cross-referenced with NSA databases, spotting anomalies in communication patterns around Brewster County, encrypted texts hinting at off-the-books operations, perhaps tied to private security firms profiting from border fears. Her family history echoed in her thoughts. Her grandparents had faced partition violence in India. teaching her that silence in the face of injustice only perpetuated it. She bandaged her shin properly now, the swelling subsiding, but the bruise a vivid, purple reminder. Outside, coyotes howled in the distance. A soundtrack to the isolation of rural Texas, where stars blanketed the sky, unpolluted by city lights. The video had hit 1 million views, comments flooding in from across the country, outrage from civil rights advocates, defenses from Harlan supporters claiming she must have provoked him. Aisha monitored the discourse, noting bots amplifying divisive narratives, a tactic she'd seen in foreign influence campaigns. This fueled her determination. Tomorrow, she'd expand the net, contacting a federal prosecutor friend, Sofia Ramirez, who'd prosecuted similar cases in the Southwest. "Sofia, it's Aisha. I need your eyes on a local deputy gone rogue. Sending files now." Sofia's response was immediate. "Saw the video? That's you. We're on it." This smells like more than one bad actor. Sleep finally claimed her. Aisha dreamed of her daughter's future, free from the shadows that had dogged her path, vowing to ensure it. Dawn broke with golden light filtering through thin curtains, birds chirping as if unaware of the turmoil. Aisha rose early, her legs stiff but manageable, brewing motel coffee that tasted like cardboard but sharpened her focus. Jamal's overnight dig revealed ties between Harlan and local militias, groups patrolling the border unofficially, often with tacit sheriff approval. Whitaker's name appeared in donor lists for anti-immigration politicians, her department receiving unexplained funds from private donors. Aisha pieced it together like a puzzle, her cryptographic skills applying to human networks as easily as code. Driving toward the next town, she passed vast ranches dotted with cattle, oil pumps nodding rhythmically like mechanical sentinels. The radio buzzed with news of the video, pundits debating police reform in border states. Aisha tuned it out, focusing on strategy she'd avoid confrontation for now, building an airtight case. A stop at a roadside cafe brought fresh insights. Overhearing locals whisper about Harlan's reputation that deputies got a temper, especially with outsiders. She nodded politely to the waitress, gathering ambient intel without drawing attention. Back on the road, her phone rang with an unknown number, a reporter fishing for quotes. "No comment," she said, but noted the outlet, tracing their biases later. The landscape shifted to rugged hills, cacti standing sentinel, as Aisha reflected on her NSA role, overseeing domestic threats, from cyber hacks to homegrown extremism. This incident blurred lines, personal and professional colliding. By midday, Jamal reported a whistleblower tip a former deputy claiming systemic cover-ups. Aisha arranged a secure meeting, her mind mapping contingencies. The video's virality peaked. Protests forming in Austin, signs reading "End Border Brutality." She felt the momentum building, her anonymous role in the shadows allowing her to orchestrate from afar. Evening found her in a library, using public Wi-Fi to access untraceable searches, uncovering Harlan's social media history riddled with xenophobic posts. Her shin ached less, but the fire within burned brighter. This was no longer about one kick. It was about uprooting a culture of impunity. As night fell, stars wheeling overhead, Aisha prepared for the deeper dive, knowing that truth would surface like oil from Texas soil, messy but inevitable. The next phase loomed, but for now, she rested, ready to awaken the system to its flaws. Days blended as Aisha delved further, her routine a blend of caution and calculation. Mornings started with yoga to ease her injury, stretches in motel rooms, overlooking dusty vistas, centering her amid chaos. Jamal's team compiled dossiers, revealing Whitaker's election was funded by real estate tycoons profiting from border wall contracts. Aisha connected the dots to Senator Harlan Voss, a distant relative of the deputy, whose policies fueled anti-immigrant rhetoric. Voss's name appeared in emails leaked anonymously, hinting at influence over local law. She avoided home, staying mobile to evade tails, her sedan blending into traffic. A chance encounter at a flea market yielded stories from vendors, migrants harassed, families torn by unfounded stops. These human elements fueled her, reminding her of her parents' struggles arriving in the 80s, facing go-back slurs while building a life. The video evolved, remixed with music, shared globally, drawing international attention to U.S. border issues. Aisha monitored from afar, her NSA tools ethically bent to track suppression attempts, IP addresses trying to flag. The content has fake. Sophia updated, DOJ is interested. Your file's solid. Confidence grew, but so did risks. A suspicious car lingered near her motel one night, prompting a quick exit. She relocated to a bed and breakfast in a quaint town, its Victorian charm contrasting with the tension. There, she met an elderly couple who shared tales of civil rights marches in the 60s, inspiring her anew. Her daughter's call brought warmth. Mom, that video is at you. Be safe, Aisha reassured, just doing what needs doing. As the chapter of awakening closed, Aisha stood on a hill overlooking the Rio Grande, wind whipping her hair, the river, a symbol of division and flow. The kick had been the catalyst, but her response was the true force, a woman rising, ready to challenge the entrenched powers that underestimated her. With evidence mounting, she geared for confrontation, the Texas sun setting on old ways, rising on justice's dawn as the first rays of dawn pierced the horizon over the rugged Texas Badlands, casting long shadows across the endless expanse of cactus-dotted plains and distant mesas. Aisha Patel sat in the dimly lit confines of her temporary safe house, a nondescript Airbnb rental on the outskirts of a sleepy border town called Marfa, where art installations mingled oddly with the harsh realities of frontier life. Her leg, still tender from the kick that had ignited this firestorm, was propped up on a cushioned ottoman, an ice pack pressed against the fading bruise as she scrolled through encrypted messages on her laptop. The screen's glow illuminating her determined features. The video of Deputy Mark Harlan's assault had exploded overnight, amassing millions of views across platforms, with hashtags like #BorderBrutality and #Justice for Aisha trending globally, drawing condemnation from civil rights organizations and even a few cautious statements from politicians wary of the immigration debate's volatility. But Aisha wasn't basking in the viral spotlight. She was dissecting it, using her NSA-honed skills to trace digital footprint spots, amplifying hate comments, IP addresses linked to local servers attempting to flag the footage as manipulated. Jamal Reyes, her loyal deputy and a brilliant analyst, with a background in AI forensics, had been up all night compiling data, his voice crackling over a secure video call as he shared his screen. Chief, we've got a web here. Harlan's not isolated. His complaints were buried by Sheriff Donna Whitaker herself. Look at this: 4 incidents in the last 2 years, all involving minorities near the border, dismissed with identical boilerplate language about insufficient evidence. And Whitaker. Her campaign was bankrolled by Voss Industries, a subsidiary tied to Senator Harlan Voss. Aisha leaned forward, her mind mapping the connections like a neural network. Nodes linking Harlan's street-level aggression to Whitaker's administrative cover-ups and upward to Voss, the senator whose family name echoed Harlan's distant cousins. Perhaps, but the nepotism reeked of old Texas dynasties built on oil, land, and influence. Voss had made his career railing against porous borders in fiery speeches on the Senate floor, pushing bills that funneled billions into private security contracts, many awarded to firms with questionable ties to vigilante groups. Jamal, cross-reference Whitaker's financials with Voss's PAC donations, Aisha instructed, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. She sipped from a mug of strong chai tea, a habit from her Mumbai roots that grounded her amid chaos. The spices evoking memories of her mother's kitchen, where stories of resilience against colonial oppression were shared over steaming cups. As Jamal typed furiously, Aisha reflected on the broader implications. This wasn't just personal. It mirrored the systemic xenophobia plaguing border states, where immigrants like her parents were scapegoated, their contributions to society overshadowed by fear-mongering narratives. The mechanics video had captured not only the kick, but Harlan slurs. Words like "go back where you came from" that echoed the anti-Asian and anti-South Asian sentiments she'd faced post-9/11s, when her NSA recruitment was nearly derailed by baseless suspicions. Now, as chief of the Homeland Security Division, she oversaw threats from within and without, but this felt internal, a rot festering in the very institutions meant to protect. Jamal's update pinged. Got it. Voss's super PAC donated $250,000 to Whitaker's re-election last cycle, eroded through shell companies. And get this, Voss sits on the Senate Committee on Homeland Security, influencing NSA contracts. Conflict of interest? Much? Aisha's eyes narrowed. This was the network. A tangled lattice of corruption where local law enforcement served as enforcers for political agendas, suppressing dissent to maintain the status quo. She decided to loop in Sofia Ramirez, the federal prosecutor she'd worked with on a previous case involving cartel cyber intrusions, a no-nonsense Latina from El Paso who understood the border's complexities intimately. Dialing Sofia on an encrypted line, Aisha outlined the evidence. "Sofia, we've uncovered a pattern. Harlan's assaults covered by Whitaker, funded by Voss. I need you to prep a RICO angle. This smells like organized racketeering under the guise of law enforcement." Sofia's response was immediate and fiery. "Aisha, if this holds, we could topple the whole pyramid. But watch your back. These folks play dirty. I've seen whistleblowers vanish in these parts." The warning hung heavy, but Aisha brushed it aside, her strategic mind already plotting countermeasures. She instructed Jamal to deploy subtle digital traps, honeypot servers mimicking leaked NSA files designed to lure hackers tracing her movements. As the morning progressed, the Texas heat built outside, mirages dancing on the blacktop roads leading to Mexico, while inside, Aisha pored over satellite imagery of Brewster County, spotting unusual vehicle patterns around the sheriff's office in marked trucks that could belong to private contractors. Her thoughts drifted to her daughter, Priya, who was interning at a tech firm in Silicon Valley, texting her a quick "stay safe. Mom, the news is wild," with a heart emoji. Aisha replied with reassurance, but internally, she worried about ripple effects. If Voss's reach extended to federal levels, her family could become targets. Pushing the fear down, she focused on action. Driving to a nearby library under the guise of a tourist, using public computers to anonymously upload redacted files to investigative journalists, seeding the story further. By noon, major outlets, like the New York Times and Univision, were running pieces on the mysterious assault victim potentially linked to federal intel. Speculation swirling as Aisha's identity remained concealed. But the retaliation began subtly. At first, a suspicious email phishing attempt on her account, traced back to a server in Austin with ties to Voss's campaign. Then, more overtly, as she returned to her rental, she noticed her sedan's tires slashed, deep gashes from a knife, and a note wedged under the wiper. "Mind your own business, outsider." Aisha photographed it, forwarding it to Jamal for fingerprint analysis via NSA Labs. Her pulse quickening, but resolve hardening. This was escalation. Confirmation she'd struck a nerve. Calling a tow truck under an alias, she relocated to another spot, a ranch-style motel with views of wind turbines spinning lazily in the breeze. Symbols of Texas's shift to renewables amid its oil heritage. There, she set up a war room, printing maps and timelines on the room's ancient printer. pinning them to the wall like a detective in a noir film. Jamal joined virtually, sharing a breakthrough. "Chief, we've got leaked emails from Whitaker's office directives to handle complaints against Harlan quietly. And Voss is CC'd on some, discussing border integrity operations that sound like off-books patrols." Aisha nodded, piecing it with reports of missing migrants. Cases dismissed as voluntary returns, but whispered as forced deportations. This network profited from fear, securing contracts for detention centers and surveillance tech. Voss's family firm bidding on them unchecked to counter the growing threats. Aisha activated her NSA toolkit, ethically deploying drone surveillance over key locations. Small quadcopters disguised as hobby models, capturing footage of meetings at a remote ranch owned by Voss affiliates. The feeds showed Harlan himself post-suspension, conferring with armed men in tactical gear, their conversations inaudible, but their body language aggressive. Jamal enhanced the audio if possible, she directed, while Sophia filed preliminary subpoenas for financial records, leveraging the viral video as probable cause. But the payback intensified that evening. As Aisha stepped out for supplies, a black SUV tailed her through Marfa's artsy streets, lined with galleries showcasing minimalist sculptures that contrasted the brewing conflict. She evaded them with a sharp turn into a crowded market, blending into tourists snapping photos of the famous Marfa Lights phenomenon, mysterious orbs in the night sky, folklore attributing them to UFOs or ghosts. Heart-pounding, she ducked into a cafe, ordering tamales to maintain cover, her mind racing through evasion protocols learned from field ops in hostile territories. Texting Jamal, "Tail drum plates if I send pic," a T, responded with hacks into traffic cams, identifying the vehicle as registered to a private security firm linked to Voss. This was no coincidence. They were hunting her, perhaps to intimidate. Or worse. Undeterred, Aisha countered by leaking selective intel to a trusted blogger focused on border corruption, who published an expose naming Whitaker's role in burying complaints, citing anonymous sources. The article went viral, protests erupting in El Paso and San Antonio, crowds chanting for accountability, signs waving with Aisha's blurred image from the video. But victory felt fleeting when, later that night, her motel room was ransacked drawers. A pendant laptop, untouched but files rifled through, a clear message, "We know where you are." Security cameras showed masked figures, but facial recognition via Jamal pinpointed one as a former deputy under Whitaker. Aisha didn't panic. Instead, she upgraded her defenses, installing motion sensors and an encrypted panic button linked to federal agents. Sophia called with urgency. "Aisha, DOJ is fast-tracking this. We've got warrants for Harlan's phone records. But Voss is pulling strings. Rumors of a smear campaign against you, claiming you're overreaching on immigration intel." Aisha laughed bitterly. Smears were old hat, reminiscent of her early career when rivals questioned her patriotism. "Let them try," she said. "Truth is our shield." As days blurred into a relentless pursuit, Aisha delved deeper into the corruption web, uncovering Voss's ties to a shadowy PAC funding anti-migrant ads, money laundered through real estate deals in border towns. Jamal's AI models predicted escalation patterns, flagging potential ambushes based on historical data from similar cases. Asterisk, she met Sophia in person at a neutral spotted diner in Alpine, surrounded by college students from the local university. Their chatter providing auditory cover. Over plates of huevos rancheros, they strategized, we build the case, brick by brick financial trails, witness testimonies, digital footprints. Sophia shared a tip from an insider, a disgruntled clerk in Whitaker's office willing to flip, providing internal memos ordering evidence destruction in Harlan's cases. Aisha arranged the extraction, meeting the clerk under a starry sky at a remote viewpoint. the Milky Way sprawling above like a cosmic witness. The documents were golden mails directing cleanup after assaults, Voss's name invoked as the boss upstairs. Armed with this, Aisha set digital traps, creating fake leaks. To bait responses, monitoring Voss's communications for slips. The retaliation peaked midweek. Her replacement rental car was torched in the parking lot, flames licking the night sky as sirens wailed from afar. Aisha watched from a safe distance, phone in hand, recording the arsonists fleeing their license plate captured for tracing. Jamal run links to Voss's security detail. Confirmation came swiftly, fueling a federal complaint for witness tampering. Protests swelled, drawing national attention, celebrities tweeting support. While counter-demonstrations from pro-law enforcement groups clashed in tense standoffs. Aisha's anonymity cracked slightly when a reporter deduced her NSA role, publishing a profile lauding her as a silent guardian turned avenger. Voss responded with a press conference denying involvement, his silver hair and folksy drawl masking the venom. This is a witch hunt against patriots protecting our borders. But cracks showed Harlan arrested on unrelated charges to distance. The network Whitaker placed on leave. Aisha pressed on, collaborating with Sophia to file a civil rights lawsuit, naming the county and Voss's entities. In quieter moments, she meditated on her heritage, drawing strength from tales of Gandhi's nonviolence and her parents' quiet defiance. Jamal uncovered the crown jewel, encrypted chats between Voss and Whitaker discussing neutralizing the Patel. Problem code for intimidation. This was RICO material, conspiracy laid bare. As threats mounted, a poison pen letter, laced with veiled death, threats Aisha fortified. Hiring private protection while pushing the DOJ for a protective detail. The chapter of corruption's unveiling reached fever pitch when Aisha orchestrated a sting, leaking a fake meeting location, rigged with hidden cams and mics. The bait drew Whitaker's allies, caught discussing payoffs and cover-ups, their arrests swift under a federal raid. Voss's empire trembled, subpoenas flying, his Senate allies distancing. Aisha, from her evolving command center, now in a secure Austin safe house overlooking Lady Bird Lake, felt the tide turning, but knew the final blow awaited. Her leg healed, but scars lingered, fueling her unyielding pursuit of justice in a land where borders divided more than geography, they severed humanity. The network unraveled thread by thread. Retaliation met with resilience. As Aisha Patel emerged not just as a victim, but architect of change, her story weaving into the fabric of a nation's reckoning with its shadows. Nights blurred with data. Dives Aisha, tracing Voss's offshore accounts. Jamal's algorithms flagging anomalies in campaign finance reports, millions funneled through dummy cores. Benefiting from border wall bids. Sophia built the legal fortress, deposing witnesses under seal, their testimonies painting a picture of fear. Deputies coerced into silence, migrants deported to hush complaints. One story haunted Aisha, young Indian engineer like her father. Assaulted by Harlan during a traffic stop, the case was dropped after threats. This personal echo spurred her, reminding her that the fight transcended her. Retaliation evolved digitally. DOS attacks on her secure lines traced to hackers for hire, linked to Voss's tech consultants. Jamal countered with firewalls, turning the assault into evidence. Protests intensified, marches in Dallas with effigies of Harlan, counter-protesters waving flags, chanting "Back the Blue." Media frenzy peaked, CNN interviewing experts on systemic bias, Fox decrying federal overreach. Aisha granted an anonymous interview, her voice disguised, emphasizing patterns over personality. Voss's smear machine was activated, leaking fabricated stories of her biased NSA ops favoring immigrants. She rebutted with facts, releasing declassified reports on her successes against real threats. Sophia's breakthrough. A wiretap warrant. yielding Voss berating Whitaker for sloppy work. Indictments loomed, the web tightening. Aisha's family visited covertly, her daughter hugging her tightly. "You're a hero, Mom." Strength renewed, she planned the endgame, the corruption exposed. Retaliation futile against truth's momentum, as the first hints of twilight painted the vast Q's dast. Texas sky in strokes of crimson and indigo, stretching over the rolling hills and ancient pecan groves that dotted the landscape outside Austin. Aisha Patel stood on the balcony of her fortified safe house, a sleek, modern condo leased under an alias, overlooking the Colorado River where kayakers glided silently like ghosts in the fading light. The city buzzed below, unaware of the seismic shifts brewing in its undercurrents, but Aisha felt the weight of it all pressing on her shoulders. A culmination of weeks of relentless pursuit that had transformed her from a shadowy NSA operative into a beacon of unflinching truth. Her shin had fully healed now, the physical scar a faint line beneath her skin. But the emotional ones ran deeper, etched by the revelations of corruption that extended far beyond Deputy Mark Harlan's boutin to the very veins of power that pulsed through Texas politics. With the evidence amassed, a digital fortress of emails, financial trails, witness testimonies, and intercepted communications linking Harlan's brutality to Sheriff Donna Whitaker's complicity and Senator Harlan Voss's orchestration, Aisha knew the time for shadows had ended. It was the hour of reckoning. Jamal Reyes, her steadfast deputy, had just forwarded the final piece, a decrypted audio file from Voss's private server, captured via a sophisticated NSA backdoor she'd authorized under emergency protocols, where the senator's voice, gravelly and commanding, directed Whitaker to bury the Patel file deep, make it look like radical activism. His words dripping with the arrogance of untouchability. Sophia Ramirez, the prosecutor who'd become more than an Elias' sister-in-arms, called moments later, her voice electric with urgency. "Aisha, this is it. The DOJ has greenlit the indictment's conspiracy, civil rights violations, obstruction of justice. We're moving at dawn, but Voss is slippery. Rumors say he's rallying allies in D.C. to paint this as a partisan hit." Aisha gazed at the river's flow, symbolizing the inexorable pull of justice, and replied, "Then we don't give him time. Leak the audio selectively enough to force his hand without compromising the case." The plan was set, a fabricated summit, baited as a high-level meeting between Aisha and DOJ officials at a neutral venue, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Brewster County. Rigged with hidden surveillance, FBI snipers positioned in the surrounding scrubland, and decoy documents planted to tempt the desperate. This wasn't just a trap. It was the final unraveling, designed to draw out the remnants of the network, exposing any lingering enablers who'd evaded the net so far. As night deepened, stars emerging like diamonds scattered across black velvet, Aisha prepared mentally, meditating on her journey from the immigrant child navigating prejudice in Houston's suburbs, where her accent drew mockery and her ambitions were dismissed as unrealistic, to the NSA chief who dismantled cyber rings threatening national security. This fight had personal echoes, meeting families of Harlan's other victims during covert gatherings, like the widow of a Mexican-American trucker who'd been beaten during a routine stop, her tears mirroring Aisha's suppressed rage, or the young Sikh student pulled over for looking suspicious, his story reminding her of her brother's encounters with post-9/11's Islamophobia, despite their Hindu roots. These connections fueled her, transforming the abstract into the visceral, a mosaic of human suffering demanding accountability. Jamal arrived in person for the first time in weeks, his lanky frame carrying a backpack of tech gear, eyes alight with the thrill of the endgame. "Chief, the warehouse's wired cameras, mics, even thermal sensors. If they bite, we'll have them on tape, admitting everything." They reviewed contingencies over takeout tacos, the spicy flavors a brief respite as Aisha outlined her role. She'd be the visible bait. Arriving alone to sell the illusion, her NSA training in undercover ops ensuring she projected vulnerability while concealing strength. Dawn broke with a fierce Texas sunrise, the air crisp with the scent of dew on yucca plants. As Aisha drove the familiar Route 66 toward the warehouse, it's the same road where it all began at that forsaken gas station. Protests had evolved into a movement now, with rallies across the state demanding police oversight reforms. Bills introduced in the legislature for body cam mandates and independent reviews. Ripples from her stand that Voss's machine couldn't quell. The warehouse loomed, a rusted relic from oil boom days, its corrugated walls echoing with wind-whipped dust devils. Aisha parked, stepping out with a briefcase of phony files, her heart steady as she entered the dimly lit interior, beams of light piercing through cracked windows like accusatory fingers. Minutes ticked by in tense silence, broken only by the distant call of a mockingbird. Until shadows stirred, three figures emerging from the back, armed and masked, one revealing himself as a Voss aide. His voice smug. "Ms. Patel, you should've stayed in D.C., hand over the docs, and maybe we let you walk." Aisha stalled, her hidden earpiece relaying to the team outside, drawing them out. "Why protect Harlan? He's the weak link in Voss's chain." The aide laughed, but his companion slipped, one muttering, "The senator can't have his cousin's mess exposing the contracts. Those border deals are worth millions." Another added, "Whitaker already shredded half the files. This ends it." That was the confession, captured crystal clear. FBI agents swarmed in, a flash of badges and shouts, "Hands up, federal agents!" Cuffing the intruders as chaos erupted, the aide's face paling in realization. Aisha stood unmoved, her gaze locking on the lead figure. "You thought you were the hunters, but power like yours crumbles when exposed to light." The arrests cascaded from there. Harlan dragged from his hideout in a seedy motel, ranting about fake news as cuffs clicked. Whitaker pulled from her ranch at sunrise, her defiant glare cracking under the weight of evidence. Voss apprehended at his Capitol Hill office mid-meeting, the Senate chamber echoing with gasps as marshals led him away, his empire of influence shattering like glass underfoot. Indictments rained down: racketeering for the financial schemes, perjury for the cover-ups, civil rights abuses for the pattern of violence that had terrorized communities along the border. Sophia led the prosecutions, her courtroom presence a force of nature, presenting timelines that wove Harlan's kick into a tapestry of systemic rot, witnesses testifying through tears about lost loved ones and shattered trusts. Aisha took the stand, not as a victim, but as the architect of truth, her testimony measured and damning. This network didn't just break laws, it broke lives, profiting from prejudice while cloaking itself in patriotism. The trials dragged on. For months, media circus tents pitched outside courthouses from Alpine to Austin, pundits dissecting every revelation: Voss's secret slush funds, Whitaker's doctored reports, Harlan's history of unreported assaults, unearthed from sealed files. Convictions followed. Harlan was sentenced to 15 years for assault and rights violations, Whitaker 210 for obstruction, Voss 220 for conspiracy. His Senate seat vacated in disgrace, triggering special elections that ushered in reformers pledging transparency. Texas legislature passed the Patel Act, named unofficially after her, mandating independent oversight boards for sheriff departments, body cams with AI audits, and de-escalation training focused on bias reduction, changes rippling to neighboring states amid national debates on policing. But for Aisha, the victories were bittersweet. The process had unearthed deeper scars, like anonymous threats persisting even post-arrests, whispers of shadowy donors vowing revenge. One night, in her Austin home, now secured with NSA-grade alarms, she received a package, no return address. Containing a faded photo of her family from her immigration days, a subtle warning, we remember. It shook her, evoking fears for Priya, but also ignited resolve. Meeting with victims' families became her anchor, organizing support groups in community centers, where stories flowed like healing rivers. A Latina mother sharing how her son's beating mirrored Aisha's assault, or an Afghan refugee detailing harassment that echoed her parents' struggles. These bonds forged a new purpose. After deep reflection, Aisha submitted her resignation from the NSA, not in defeat, but liberation. "I've served in shadows long enough," she wrote in her letter. "Now I'll fight in the open." Post-resignation, she founded the Border Integrity Coalition, a non-profit leveraging her expertise to train activists in digital forensics. Exposing corruption through workshops in border towns, her speeches at universities, and TED-like events inspiring thousands. Justice isn't a verdict. It's a vigil sustained by those who refuse to look away. One such talk, at a Houston auditorium packed with diverse faces, drew applause as she recounted her story, weaving in lessons from her heritage, the nonviolent resistance of India's independence movement. Her father's mantra, "Knowledge is the sharpest sword." Media dubbed her the Sentinel of the South. Profiles highlighting her transition from bureaucrat to advocate. But Aisha shunned the limelight, focusing on grassroots impacts like helping a young woman sue for wrongful detention or partnering with tech firms to develop free apps for reporting police misconduct. Threats lingered. A cyber attack on her coalition's site, traced to remnants of Voss's network, or a suspicious vehicle outside her home, but she countered with alliances, collaborating with former DOJ insiders and civil rights icons. A pivotal moment came during a confrontation with a lingering figure, Elias Kane, a private contractor tied to Voss's old deals, who approached her at a fundraiser. His smile predatory. "You toppled giants, but the machine rebuilds." Aisha met his gaze unflinchingly. "Machines rust when starved of secrets. Yours is obsolete." She recorded the exchange discreetly, forwarding it to Sophia for investigation, leading to Kane's arrest for attempted bribery. This solidified her independence, her life a blend of advocacy and reflection, weekends with Priya hiking in Big Bend National Park, discussing ethics in tech, or quiet evenings reading biographies of trailblazers like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Malala Yousafzai. A year after the kick, Aisha returned to Lone Star Fuel, the gas station transformed, pumps gleaming under new ownership. A bronze plaque installed by locals reading, "Here, resilience ignited change." Aisha Patel stood unbroken. She lingered, fingers tracing the words, memories flooding the pain. The resolve, the ripple of transformation. A mechanic, the same youth who'd filmed it, approached, now an activist himself. "You changed everything." Aisha smiled. "We did. One stand at a time." Driving away under a boundless Texas sky, she felt not closure, but continuation. The storm she'd unleashed, now a steady wind of progress, carrying her forward to whatever injustices lay ahead. Her legacy wasn't in headlines, but hearts. The immigrant child empowered, the victim turned victor, the woman who proved that truth, wielded wisely, could reshape worlds. As borders blurred in the rearview, Aisha embraced the horizon, knowing her fight endured, a testament to an enduring spirit in a divided land. Months turned to seasons, Aisha's coalition growing into a national force. Chapters sprouting in California and Arizona, training sessions packed with eager volunteers. Learning to decode financial ledgers and spot digital manipulations, she testified before Congress on surveillance ethics, her voice cutting through partisan noise. "Power unchecked breeds tyranny. Oversight is our safeguard." Voss's fall sparked investigations into similar networks elsewhere, and DOJ task forces dismantled. parallel schemes in other states. Personal growth bloomed Tori connecting with extended family in India via video calls, sharing her story at virtual reunions, inspiring cousins to pursue law. Priya, influenced deeply, switched majors to cybersecurity with a human rights focus, interning at the coalition. Challenges persisted. A lawsuit from Voss's estate claiming defamation. Dismissed swiftly with evidence or online trolls amplified by bots, countered by Aisha's media literacy campaigns. She authored a book, Shadows of the Border, Unmasking Systemic Silence, a bestseller blending memoir with policy prescriptions. Royalties, funding scholarships for underrepresented STEM students. Speaking engagements took her nationwide from NAC Ballas to tech conferences, where she emphasized community. Change isn't solitary. It's symphonic, each voice harmonizing for equity. One poignant encounter. Meeting Harlan's ex-partner. A woman escaping his abuse who thanked Aisha for the courage to speak out. Their hug a bridge over divides. As winter winds swept Texas, blanketing fields in frost. Aisha reflected during a solitary drive through hill country. Bluebonnets dormant, but promising spring's bloom. The plaque at the gas station had become a pilgrimage site, stories shared. Online of visitors leaving tokens flowers, notes of solidarity. Returning there on the anniversary, under a full moon casting a silver glow, Aisha stood alone, whispering gratitude to the universe for turning pain into purpose. No longer just the kicked woman, she was the catalyst, her narrative woven into America's evolving tapestry of justice. The road ahead curved endlessly, but Aisha drove on, empowered. The echoes of her stand resonating far beyond that dusty lot, a reminder that one act of defiance can ignite revolutions, fostering hope in hearts once shadowed by fear. Her message: endured in the face of adversity, rise not with vengeance, but with vision, building bridges where walls once stood. And so, the sentinel continued her watch, ever vigilant, ever inspiring,